the people in this room right now, I have a very short amount of time to share this with you, but I'm treating this as though there are people in this room, perhaps all of you, perhaps just some of you, who will go on to be that DHS branch chief that I was. Just try and imagine, if you can, that the clothes on your back right now are everything you own. Because everything else has been literally washed away by a wall of water 30 feet high. If you have loved ones, if you have kids, they ask you, I'm thirsty. You don't know where you're going to get that water from them. But this is the reality of what went on for so many of our fellow countries. You call 911, and we're conditioned to think that police and fire are going to respond. But they can't, because they've been impacted by the same wall of water that your family has been impacted by. These police cars have actually been submerged completely. The whole Hancock County Sheriff's Department. We hinted earlier at the impact of hospitals. You know, you can't call 911, so maybe you'll drive your loved one to the hospital. How do you feel when you get there and you see all of the medical equipment for the hospital lying out, drying out in the hot, humid Mississippi sun because it has all been inundated up to that brown line of brick? How do you interact with your family and your loved ones as you say, Mommy and Daddy don't know where you're going to be staying tonight, and this is your home for who knows how long. This is where you go to get food. This is where you go to get water. Many people woke up to this reality. Went down in order to restore communications, specifically communications into shelters. And that was something that was so important because, as we've heard earlier, those communications, your cell phones don't work. USAR really came into the public forefront after the events of 9/11. One of the core tenets of what urban search and rescue does is extrication of victims from reinforced steel and concrete structures. And these are sort of self-selecting team of operators. You don't, this isn't something you do as a collateral duty. This is something that you absolutely sign up for because it is so dangerous. This was an aerial photo that was taken prior to landfall. And when a team comes from out of state who's not familiar with the area, this is something that they base a lot of their response on. Well, this is after. And so what existed before, all these maps don't exist anymore. They don't reflect reality. And so just to give you an example of what that looks like on the ground, this is the remnants of a house. I mean, this is a whole neighborhood right here. And even if you push over a concrete or a block wall, it's going to stay together. But this has just been completely pulverized by the ocean. And so imagine you're trying to search for deceased individuals in this. It's horrific. It's really, it's dangerous. It's challenging. I want you to pay close attention to the blue roof on this house, just to give you an idea of the scope. And this is just one debris field in Hancock County. There's the blue roof. That house had floated over 1 mile to its final resting location right there. And so the technological challenge when you get a missing person report for someone who lived at that house, you have to figure out the path that debris took and the places where those remains could be. Of all the photos that I took, this is the one that impacts me the most. I know the firefighters right there. I know the man in the background very well, actually. He's brass tacks. He is really tough. And if you look at his posture right there, he's talking to a man who's just lost everything. And look at him. He's playing with his gloves. He's got his foot up like that. He is uncomfortable. That is not something he is used to dealing with. And so that's another impact that, you have to be aware of. Somebody may be tough when they get to go home at the end of the shift, but when they have to deal with it over and over and over and over again, it wears on you. First, before we go on to that, I want to just give a little bit of information here. So I think we can agree that the odds of being either killed by a shark or struck by lightning are really low. Really low. Even the odds of knowing someone who has been struck by lightning or being struck by lightning in an entire lifetime, fairly low. Any other fatalities in other areas? Can anybody tell me the last time there was a fatality due to a school fire in the United States? 5 years? Show of hands, 5 years. 10? 20? 30? 40? Anybody? 40? 50? The answer is 54 years. 1958 was the last time a student, anybody, perished in a fire. And in 1958, in the Our Lady of Angels fire in Chicago, 92 students and 3 nuns lost their lives. And in that year was born the modern fire drill that we know and love. Now, the interesting thing about the fire drill, everybody knows what to do in a fire drill. It doesn't matter if you are the smartest valedictorian in the class, the administrator, the janitor, or someone in the special needs class. Everybody knows what to do in a fire drill, and it's trained and it's ingrained. I mean, who's been in like a mall or some situation like that and the fire alarm goes off, and what do people do? They look around to other people to see what to do. How is it that there's been that disconnect between K through 12, all those fire drills, and then all of a sudden, when there's no authority figure, our brain switches off and it tells us not process information independently, observe, see what's going on, is this okay, or make my own evaluation, but we look and see what our neighbors are doing. That's what gets people killed. And in a stressful situation, that's what gets people killed even more. All right. Let's take a look at this pyramid again. If we do the math on that last one there are over 450 billion student days that have elapsed between 1958 and today with 0 fatalities. So and I understand that there are some mutually exclusive issues with this, and statisticians will get upset with me. You have more likelihood of being struck by lightning while being eaten by a shark than you do of dying in a school fire. Mindset and training need to sometimes be different from policy, right? Is anybody familiar with this? OSU students, right? Okay, so on here, if there's a crime in progress, the first thing to do is stay calm. However, during an earthquake, it doesn't say anything about staying calm. The first thing to do is do not rush outdoors, right? So this is a checklist, okay? But without any training, this is a half measure that gets people killed, all right? I have in my hand the 1981 Cessna Skyhawk Pilot Operating Handbook. There is everything that you need to know in order to fly a Cessna in this handbook. Is there anyone who wants to go fly with me with just this? All right? No, okay? And I happen to be a good pilot, by the way, but I wouldn't fly with me either. That was one of the last blocks that they taught, the last blocks of instruction that they taught. Because up until this point in EMT training, they teach you to focus on this one patient. And you do everything in your power within your protocols to save that one individual. You get to mass casualty, and they say, okay, now this person, you have to let him go. You can't put any more energy or effort into helping this individual, because in order to do that would require others who you could potentially save to go away. And so that really stuck with me. I've never forgotten that because it's once again, it's like you learn all this and then they're like, okay, but if this happens, then you flip it around. Like the bottom line is that nobody's going to tap you on the head with a stick and tell you that, it's your turn to be a leader. And by doing that, not only do we serve ourselves, but we serve everyone around us. Because people, especially in difficult times, people are looking for leadership. And I think that if you look deep inside each of you, that there's places where you could identify where people look up to you, and those are the areas where it's easiest to become a leader, and people will thank you for it. One last thing. We talked a lot about preparedness. This is something that I have studied extensively since Hurricane Katrina. And what I've discovered is that there are two basic ways to motivate people to prepare. The first one is to motivate people to prepare by fear. Do this or else this will happen. And I think that while that can work, that is really bad, because what happens is after the immediate threat goes away, then you go back to your normal state. The reason for that is because it takes an immense amount of energy to remain in a state of fear. And so I will, I'll put forth the example that on January 1st of 2000, there were a ton of generators for sale on eBay, because after the Y2K scare passed and nothing bad happened, people who had prepared for an event based on fear, once the event passes, they say, okay, I'm done. I don't need to worry about this anymore. And then they go back to the normal way of living their life. However, there's another way to motivate people, and that is by showing them that they have a capacity within them to lead, and a capacity within them to help other people with their leadership.